You know, well, I don't know why the hell she's faking it. And then I went ahead and lit up my joint again, smoked the rest of my joint, you know, waiting for her to get back up.
How long was she lying there with her, heart beating?
Oh man, for like 45 minutes.
And what did you do?
I was watching cartoons and smoking joint and just thinking that, wow, she's faking this.
Right in the middle of New York City's lively East Village, Tompkins Square Park has seen a lot of changes over the years. Back in the 60s, when it was known as Needle Park, it was a popular spot for rebels like Timothy Leary to turn on, tune in, and drop out. Then, in the 80s, the park started to go through a dramatic shift. A lot of rich yuppies started moving in, and this pushed out many of the park's homeless folks, some of whom were dealing with mental health issues and addiction. It was 1988, and Daniel Rakowitz, who liked to call himself Jesus, was known around the park as a laid-back guy who sold weed. He really liked the band Missing Foundation, an underground punk group. They were known for their chants of "Die Yuppie Scum" and trashing the venues they played at. Some people thought they were into devil worship, but that wasn't true. The band was like a voice for the people who felt pushed out because the East Village was changing and the rich were moving in. When the band planned a protest, Daniel wanted to be a part of it, ready to fight for the park and the people who hung out there. During the protest, tensions escalated quickly and the situation turned chaotic. Protesters and police clashed, leading to a full-blown riot. In the aftermath, the NYPD acknowledged their mishandling of the event. They admitted that the officers who responded were not properly supervised, were not briefed or prepared for the situation, and many were new recruits with little experience. This lack of preparation and oversight led to officers being charged with using excessive force. The incident became a significant moment in the history of Tompkins Square Park. But the following year, Daniel would make the park even more infamous. Daniel's childhood in Texas was a series of challenging experiences that shaped his early life. He faced psychological issues from a young age and claims to have undergone electroconvulsive therapy at the age of 14. The bullying he endured, coupled with the trauma of witnessing his mother's death from a heart attack, would leave deep emotional scars. His relationship with his father, an authoritarian figure, was strained and filled with conflict. This tension reached a breaking point when his father discovered Daniel's marijuana possession and had him arrested. When he turned 18, Daniel joined the army as a means of escape, but his past conviction would prevent him from pursuing a career as a military police officer. Eventually, Daniel left Texas for the big city, where he began selling weed and hanging out in the parks of Manhattan. In New York City, Daniel's life was a mix of anger and odd behavior. He often ranted about his hatred for the police and his strange plans, like his desire to father lots of children and to start a church in Colorado. He talked about wanting to hurt people, and he was obsessed with the numbers 9 and 6. Daniel moved between apartments and being homeless, and while many thought he was just another crazy person on the street, there were signs of deeper issues. He had a pet rooster that he mistreated, showing a lack of empathy often associated with psychopathy. His former roommates also noticed symptoms of obsessive-compulsive disorder as he displayed repetitive behaviors and fixations. To many, he was just another face in the crowd of the city's homeless population, his erratic behavior dismissed, even described as too crazy to be dangerous. But he turned out to be more than just an eccentric figure in the park. Monica Bierl, originally from Switzerland, moved to the U.S. with dreams of advancing her dance and choreography career. Known for her independent streak and a tendency to break the rules, she began her studies at the Martha Graham School of Dance. While in school, she made a living as an exotic dancer at a couple of clubs. She was always on the move, so when she got an opportunity to move out of a cramped apartment and into a place with her own room, she took it. 700 East 9th Street was where she met Daniel Rakowitz and became his flatmate. At first, Monica saw Daniel as just one of the many quirky characters populating the city, but she would soon find out she was mistaken. Without a formal job, Daniel couldn't sign a lease agreement, so it had to be in Monica's name. Daniel's friends warned him that she might ask him to leave. Daniel saw himself as Monica's boyfriend, but it was clear to everyone else that Monica wanted to keep her distance from him. When she began to bring dates home, Daniel's anger grew. Monica's friends, concerned for her safety due to Daniel's violent threats, urged her to kick him out. Defiantly, she confronted him, saying she would defend herself if necessary, and gave him 2 weeks to move out. But 13 days later, it was Monica who left. In the following days, Daniel would brag to everyone that he had killed Monica, but his history of outlandish statements led others to dismiss it as mere ranting. He even boasted about dismembering her and serving her remains to the homeless, a claim so shocking and bizarre it was beyond belief. But Daniel wasn't just ranting. He had killed Monica, and after Monica's lifeblood had drained away, he meticulously set about his gruesome task. He severed her limbs and dismembered her body, ensuring there was no trace of his heinous act. He flushed some remains down the toilet and boiled the remaining parts clean. Blood stained his hands, but he scrubbed and scrubbed until the bathroom gleamed, erasing any evidence. Gathering her bones, he carefully packed them into a bucket filled with odor-masking kitty litter. He would eventually move away from the East Village, uptown to a new apartment with a new roommate. But in the chaos of his move, he had lost the one thing that tied him to his unspeakable crime, the claim ticket for the storage locker where he had hidden Monica's remains. The rumor would reach the ears of the building's superintendent. Concerned, he reported it to the authorities, prompting an investigation into Monica's disappearance. Daniel was called in for questioning, and when pressed about the possibility of his involvement, he brazenly remarked that if he had committed such an act, he would have disposed of her by flushing her down the toilet. However, upon examination, the pipes revealed no evidence of foul play. As the investigation deepened, more witnesses were interviewed, each adding a piece to the puzzle. One individual claimed to have actually seen Monica's dismembered body in the bathtub. Confronted with mounting evidence and eyewitness testimonies, Daniel would confess to the grisly crime. Daniel admitted that he and Monica had argued on the night of her death, his emotions boiling over at the prospect of being kicked out. He claimed that Monica had come at him with a lead pipe, so he struck her in the throat, unaware of the fatal consequences. He thought she was faking it and sat down to smoke a joint and watch cartoons. He even left the apartment to make a weed deal, and when he came back, she was cold. So he turned to desperate measures, disposing of her remains according to instructions he says he had received from, quote, people who know about these things.
Because they're involved into a special religion that they do a lot of weird things like that.
So you thought to yourself, what, how can I get rid of this body?
Yeah.
As the investigation continued and the trial unfolded, Daniel's behavior grew increasingly erratic. He contradicted himself with each retelling of events. He pointed fingers at his friends Randy and Dave, weaving elaborate tales of their involvement. During the competency phase, the medical experts found him deeply disturbed but still competent to stand trial for murder. Throughout the proceedings, Daniel's outbursts shocked the courtroom. He yelled at the lawyer for the prosecution, saying he would fill a water pistol with urine and spray it in her face. Under oath, a witness would recount a disturbing incident involving a severed finger in a bowl of soup, allegedly served by Daniel. Despite the mounting evidence of his instability, Daniel rejected the suggestion of pleading insanity, fearing it would damage his political ambitions, claiming he would eventually be President of the United States. After 9 days of deliberation, the jury reached a verdict, not guilty by reason of insanity. Daniel's response was characteristically brazen, thanking the jury and suggested sharing a joint with them once he was released. However, his fate was sealed as he was remanded to Kirby Forensic Psychiatric Hospital, where he would undergo treatment and evaluation for the foreseeable future. The Kirby Forensic Psychiatric Hospital is a maximum security facility on Ward's Island in New York City. Operated by the New York State Office of Mental Health, Kirby is one of only 2 state psychiatric hospitals that treat felony patients. Described as fortress-like, it is adjacent to the Manhattan Psychiatric Center and houses more than 200 patients, including those deemed criminally insane. Here, Daniel would be housed among many other convicted defendants granted an insanity plea. A couple of years passed and a sudden twist in the tale emerged. The police apprehended Randy Easterday in connection with the killing. Daniel seized the opportunity to share his perspective with the newspaper, painting Randy as a sinister figure engaged in dark rituals and occult practices. In the interview, Daniel alleged that Randy's involvement in Monica's murder was part of a satanic ritual. He pondered aloud whether he had conspired to offer Monica's body as a sacrifice to the devil. Predictably, Randy denied these accusations, dismissing them as desperate attempts by Daniel to shift blame and evade justice. Nevertheless, Randy found himself behind bars for 2 months as the investigation unfolded. However, the district attorney ultimately conceded that there wasn't enough concrete evidence to sustain the charges against Randy. One crucial witness was deemed unreliable, casting doubt on the validity of the case against him. With insufficient evidence to proceed, Randy was released from custody. Meanwhile, Daniel was petitioning for a transfer to a non-forensic hospital. This would be a step towards potential placement in a halfway house, a gateway to an eventual release. The medical reports painted a picture of a compliant, non-violent individual who had never once been restrained or isolated for misconduct. However, Daniel's persistent refusal to accept antipsychotic medication raised concerns. The court concluded that while Daniel had shown improvement, it was within the highly structured confines of a secure psychiatric institution. They stated, quote, "His improvement does not establish that he no longer poses a danger to himself or to others should he be placed in an unsecured facility." In 2010, Daniel's situation was reviewed yet again. The verdict showed progress. He was no longer considered dangerous, but Daniel still did not accept the reality of his condition and continued to refuse medication. Though no longer seen as a threat, Daniel's mental health diagnosis meant he would continue to live within the walls of Kirby Forensic Psychiatric Hospital. As of 2020, the latest update on Daniel's story comes from the more curious corners of the internet. A true crime collectible website was selling a letter supposedly written by Daniel himself. This website, known for trading in the macabre and unusual, offered items ranging from used sugar packets to autographed handprints, and even more peculiar memorabilia crafted from the prints of various body parts. Just use your imagination. This letter is marked as originating from zip code 10035, Ward's Island. The letter says he's in a facility, though it doesn't specify if it's Kirby or the adjacent non-forensic hospital. Daniel complains that he misses his pets and the company of women. He says that he passes the time playing Magic the Gathering. What's your verdict on Daniel Rakowitz and his shocking acts? What is your view on the delicate balance between justice and the human mind? Would Daniel's magic card deck be disruptive and powerful, or something more proactive and resourceful? Personally, I like the Pokemon card game better than Magic the Gathering. What about you? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. As always, you can get more involved by subscribing and discussing the cases in the comments. I try to reply to as many as I can. Continue watching the next video and we can explore another story hidden within the wrinkles in crime.